Hello, I'm John Felt. Welcome to the weekly water outlook for April 9th, 2017. Well, like I've said for a while, we're in a very active and changeable time of year. You're going to see we had a lot of severe weather last week, and then over the next couple of weeks, some areas that have been very wet are going to be dry, some areas dry are going to be wet. We have a number of points in flood, but I think overall it's fairly typical spring flooding, main stem rivers, some minor flooding here and there, some action on tributaries. But because of the high river flows and some areas wetter soils, I think we do have some areas of vulnerability that we need to keep an eye on. Over the southeast U.S., needed some rain in spots, and they certainly got it last week, and that really did help improve a number of water resource areas. So we look at the last 7 days. Here's our precipitation, and let's start over the southeast U.S. Yellow is indicating 2 inches of rain. Red is up to 5. So we had some really significant rain over North Georgia, over the higher elevations of the southern Appalachians, over a good part of South Carolina, South Georgia, Mississippi, and parts of Alabama. And that really did help some of the rivers that needed a recharge. And I'll show you that in just a bit. It took a lot of these rivers from low flow up back into a normal flow. We also had some scattered heavier precipitation over parts of the middle part of the nation, also over the western U.S., including higher elevations of California. Well, I'm still talking about snow. You can see the snow over North Dakota that's been there forever, produced some significant flooding, is now gone. But we do still have snow over Maine and parts of the northeast U.S. That snow, as you would expect this time of year, is melting. Look at these bright shades of red and orange. This is showing very quick melting. We're also starting to get some melting over higher elevations of the west. You can see we still have quite a bit of snow over higher elevations, but that is also melting, which climatologically would be expected this time. So probably not much talk about snow unless we get really an unexpected snow late in the season. Now, temperatures, the trend has been above normal. That has been the trend for a while, and certainly a theme of this briefing is above normal temperatures. You can see there was some below normal temperatures in West Texas and here and there. That's the green and blue. That's primarily due to clouds and rain. Now, we did have a lot of severe weather almost every day last week. You can see that we had severe weather, and it wasn't just only over one area. It started out over the southern tier of the U.S., right across the south central U.S. into the southeast U.S. Then as we get into the middle of the week, we had sort of a widespread Ohio River Valley, southeast U.S., and then even the mid-Atlantic states. So very widespread severe weather over the last week. Now, rivers are traditionally or historically or climatologically above normal, or this is the time of year we get a lot of flooding. You can see we have some minor flooding in orange, isolated flooding in the moderate range in red, even some major flooding in North Dakota due to that heavy snowpack that has melted. But this is overall pretty much normal for this time of year. Some minor flooding across our major river basins. The more moderate flooding seems to be confined primarily to the tributaries into these rivers. Now, in addition to the flooding, we do have some low flows. This is the current low flow situation. Compare this from 1 week ago. This was 1 week ago, and this is the current time. And boy, what a difference this makes. We really did improve some of the stream flow over the southeast U.S. due to the recent heavy rain, the thunderstorms and very heavy rainfall. So really was a game changer as far as stream flow over parts of the southeast, primarily Georgia. Now, the leaf index is an indication of the arrival of spring. I've shown that throughout the spring season. The dark shades of red are indicating about 20 days early. Then you can see it sort of gets lighter in this region. Remember, we had 1 week of cooler temperatures, or at least near normal temperatures. So that sort of slowed things down as it got sort of north of perhaps a Kansas City line up towards central Illinois. Still running above normal, but maybe more like a week above normal compared to 20 days. So with warmer temperatures in this briefing I'll be talking about, I think it's going to accelerate again as we move further to the north. Now, we have quite a bit of soil moisture replenishment due to the recent rainfall. Been talking about some dry conditions, but we've really seen some improvement here. The dark green, the darkest shade of green is showing some vulnerability towards wet soils, perhaps enhanced runoff, soggy fields. The medium shade of green could go either way, but it's generally, I think, more adequate soil moisture. And the lighter green, sort of between the lighter green and the medium green, that's pretty much what I would say would be pretty much ideal as we get into the warmer seasons. But the story has really been a replenishment. This is a 1 month change in soil moisture, and blue is indicating increases in soil moisture. And really, from the middle part of the nation, this area up here could use some more rain. Keep that in mind because I'm going to be talking about rain this week. But the rest of the good part of the U.S. has really had a good replenishing soil moisture situation over the last month. Now, there are some exceptions, but that's generally the story. Soils are also warming up nicely. 60 degrees is a key temperature for agriculture. I think you're going to see this really shooting up over the next couple weeks moving north. You can already see a little bit of a push here, a little bit of a bow north. Isn't that interesting how the ridge of high pressure, an atmospheric phenomena, is being reflected in soil temperatures? I find that very interesting. I might be the only one, but I do find that interesting. So here's a jet stream this week. We have somewhat of a sign of a southwest flow, but I don't see nearly as much energy in this as I saw last week. So not as much severe weather, chance of severe weather, but not as much. And a ridge of high pressure that's indicated by the brown shades over the central and eastern U.S. So we're looking at temperatures significantly above normal over most of the nation with the exception of the western U.S. where we have a dip in the jet stream, so a little bit more of an amplified flow. Precipitation forecast, not really all that organized. Now, the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, in the central part of the U.S., just scattered thunderstorms here and there, perhaps some severe weather that produces some of the heavier rainfall, but not a real organized pattern and somewhat scattered. This is the area here I've outlined that has some excessive rainfall potential, and what that means by that is enhanced runoff, a little bit greater threat for flooding in those areas. Look at the southeast U.S. after lots of severe weather and heavy rain last week. This week looks like it's going to be a very quiet week with no rainfall forecast. Here's your severe weather outlook over the next couple days. This is Sunday. This is Monday. Slight risk. You remember the ranking. I should have put that on there. I'll put it on there next week. It goes marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and high. So definitely we can get some severe weather, but the risk level is on the lower end of that severe risk. Now, if we get into the 6 to 10 day here, look at the rigs. We get a more amplified flow. And what I mean by that, the jet stream dips more over the west coast. That causes the ridge of high pressure to bulge further north. What do you expect? Much warmer temperatures. Look at this. We are looking at significantly above normal temperatures, 10 degrees or maybe even more, right smack in the middle of the nation, but over almost 2/3 of the country above normal temperatures in the 6 to 10 day range. That's going to increase evapotranspiration. It's going to increase the green up in areas that haven't started. Areas that have, it's going to increase that vegetation growth, and it's going to gradually be altering our runoff characteristics during this 10-day period, gradually reducing the amount of runoff, or at least the efficiency of runoff. Now, the West Coast, cooler than normal. Then as we get into the 11 to 15-day range, now we're starting to get almost in late April. We still have an amplified flow. We still have somewhat of a southwest flow, perhaps a little bit more energy in this, but the overall amplification is not quite as strong. The shading's not as strong, so the temperatures wouldn't be expected to be the anomalies quite as strong, and that's what you see here. The overall pattern of the central and east above normal and the west below normal continues, but perhaps not quite as strong. So that's temperatures. Big story. Looks like it's going to be above normal temperatures until further notice over the central and eastern U.S., below normal temperatures over the far west and the northeast U.S. where we have that snow cover. So here's your precipitation anomalies. Look at that strong anomaly of below normal precipitation in the southeast U.S. Then we get scattered precipitation over the central part of the nation, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, another band over the upper Midwest. Remember I started my briefing, I said this area has been somewhat dry, so most of this is going to soak in. I don't think it's going to be that much of a runoff risk. Week 2, models are showing perhaps another pattern of this southwest flow, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and then a little bit broader area of rain in the upper Midwest. That is week 2, and they're not the strongest anomalies, but it could be a little bit more active week 2 than week 1. And if you're in the southeast U.S., it looks like back-to-back weeks of pretty quiet weather, a fairly strong dry anomaly for week 2. Wanted to sort of focus a bit on rivers here. There are a couple spots where we have some potential for flooding. In the upper Mississippi, we have some Illinois tributaries. We have the North Dakota and right along the Minnesota border rivers with the snowmelt. We have the hill country with that enhanced rainfall flood threat, and a couple of tributaries still responding on the lower Mississippi due to previous rainfall. So overall, this is a typical spring week. We have some things to watch, but they're going to be more and more scattered. I don't think it's going to be as active this week as in last, but I still think there'll be some heavy rain, storms, and potential for spring flooding, especially on the tributaries and then existing rivers, main stem river flooding that we've seen from previous rainfall. So that's this week's briefing. It's definitely beginning to feel like spring out there in many areas. We're seeing the signs of spring now, and I think we're going through a transition from early spring into late spring. So we're going to start changing that runoff and gradually reducing the flood threat on the main stem rivers. It'll take a while though, and certainly we have a ways to go before we get to that. Hope everybody has a great week and a great Easter weekend next weekend.